Long, long ago, in a peaceful Japanese village surrounded by green mountains and golden rice fields, there lived a gentle young boy named Kenji. He was smaller and quieter than the other children, but he possessed a wonderful gift. More than anything else in the world, Kenji loved drawing cats. Whenever Kenji found a piece of paper, a wooden board, or an empty patch of earth, he began to draw. He drew cats sleeping beneath warm sunlight, cats chasing butterflies, and cats watching the moon from tiled rooftops. Each cat seemed to have its own personality and secret little story. Kenji's family worked hard on a small farm. His older brothers carried heavy baskets, tended the rice fields, and helped repair the wooden house. Kenji tried to help them, but he was not very strong. Whenever he lifted something heavy, his arms quickly became tired. Although Kenji could not work as quickly as his brothers, he always tried his best. He gathered small vegetables, swept the floor, and brought cool water to his family. Yet even while working, he often noticed cats resting nearby and imagined how he might draw their soft fur and shining eyes. One evening, Kenji's parents sat beside the warm fire and spoke quietly. They worried that life on the farm might always be difficult for their youngest son. After much thought, they decided to send him to a nearby temple where he could study reading, writing, and the teachings of kindness. The following morning, Kenji packed a small cloth bundle with rice cakes, a wooden comb, and his favorite drawing brush. His family walked with him to the edge of the village. Listen carefully, work honestly, and always remain kind, his mother told him as she hugged him goodbye. The temple stood upon a peaceful hillside beneath ancient cedar trees. Stone lanterns lined the mossy path, and a clear stream flowed beside the wooden gate. An elderly priest welcomed Kenji warmly and showed him a small room overlooking the garden. Kenji felt nervous, but the temple seemed calm and safe. Each day, Kenji studied beside the priest. He learned how to read old stories, carefully copy beautiful characters, and sit quietly while listening to the wind in the trees. He was polite and thoughtful, and he always completed his lessons with great care. However, whenever the priest turned away, Kenji's brush began moving in a different direction. Instead of practicing letters, he drew a cat beside the page. Then he drew another cat beneath the table, followed by a tiny kitten curled inside the shape of a cloud. Before long, cats appeared everywhere. In the temple, Kenji drew them on old scraps of paper, wooden screens, unused boxes, and the edges of worn practice sheets. Some cats looked playful, some looked wise, and others appeared to be quietly protecting the temple. The priest could hardly find an empty space. The elderly priest admired Kenji's talent, but he knew the boy found it difficult to focus on temple life. One peaceful afternoon, he called Kenji into the garden. "You have a rare gift," the priest said gently. "Perhaps your path lies somewhere beyond these temple walls." Kenji lowered his head, afraid that he had disappointed the priest, but the old man smiled kindly and placed a fresh bundle of paper into his hands. "Never be ashamed of what your heart loves," he said. "However, remember this advice. Avoid large places at night and choose small ones." Kenji did not fully understand the mysterious warning. Still, he bowed respectfully and promised to remember it. The priest gave him food for the journey and pointed toward another temple beyond the mountain. Kenji hoped the priest there might allow him to study while continuing to draw. Kenji followed a winding path through the cedar forest. Sunlight flickered between the branches, birds sang high above him, and fallen leaves softly covered the ground. As he walked, he drew little cats in his imagination, each one traveling beside him like a loyal companion. Near sunset, Kenji reached the distant temple. It was much larger than the first temple, with a tall gate, wide halls, and a great bronze bell. Yet the grounds were strangely silent. No priest greeted him, and no lanterns glowed beneath the darkening evening sky. Kenji called out politely, but only his own voice returned as an echo. The temple appeared to have been abandoned for many years. Dust covered the floor. Vines climbed the wooden pillars, and fallen leaves gathered inside the entrance. Still, Kenji needed somewhere safe to rest for the night. Inside the main hall, Kenji discovered several blank folding screens. He carefully opened his bundle and took out his brush and ink. The empty screens seemed lonely, so he began covering them with beautiful cats. Sleeping cats, dancing cats, brave cats, and tiny kittens playing beneath the moon. Kenji became so absorbed in his drawing that he forgot how dark the temple had grown. By the time he finished, hundreds of cats filled the screens. Their painted eyes sparkled with life, and their soft paws seemed ready to step quietly from the paper. Kenji smiled proudly at his work. Suddenly, a cold wind moved through the great hall. The old wooden doors creaked, and a deep sound echoed somewhere in the darkness. Kenji remembered the elderly priest's warning. "Avoid large places at night," he whispered. "Choose small ones." Kenji quickly searched the temple for a smaller place to sleep. Behind the main hall, he discovered a narrow wooden cabinet used long ago for storing blankets. It was dusty and cramped, but just large enough for a small boy. Kenji climbed inside and quietly closed the door. For a while, everything remained still. Kenji wrapped himself in his robe and listened to the distant forest. Then heavy footsteps entered the temple. Something enormous moved across the floor, followed by the scratching of long claws and a deep, unhappy growl. Kenji held his breath inside the cabinet. The creature was a giant shadow rat that had frightened the nearby villagers and driven the temple priests away. It searched the hall for food, knocking over old bowls and shaking the wooden walls. But when it noticed the hundreds of painted cats, it stopped and stared at them with glowing eyes. Moonlight streamed through a broken window and touched the painted screens. One by one, the cats' whiskers began to shimmer. Their painted tails gently moved, their bright eyes opened, and soft golden light flowed from their bodies. Cats quietly stepped out from the pictures and gathered across the temple floor. Some cats were large and brave, while others were small and quick. They surrounded the shadow rat without making a sound. Rather than fighting fiercely, the cats filled the temple with a warm and peaceful light. The darkness around the creature slowly began to fade. The giant rat had lived alone in the abandoned temple for many years. Its anger had grown from fear, hunger, and loneliness. As the cat's gentle light surrounded it, the creature became smaller and calmer. At last, it turned into an ordinary gray mouse and hurried safely into the forest. The painted cats returned to the folding screens before the first light of morning. When Kenji awoke, the temple was peaceful once again. He slowly opened the cabinet door and stepped into the hall. Golden paw prints shimmered briefly across the floor before disappearing in the sunlight. Soon, villagers arrived at the temple. They had heard strange sounds during the night and came to see what had happened. They were amazed to find the frightening shadow gone. When they saw Kenji's magnificent cat paintings, they understood that something wonderful had protected the temple. The villagers invited the priest to return, and the abandoned temple became warm and lively once more. Lanterns glowed beneath the eaves, children played in the garden, and visitors traveled from distant villages to admire Kenji's beautiful cats. Everyone said the paintings carried a gentle spirit. Kenji became a famous artist, but he never forgot the elderly priest's kindness or mysterious advice. He traveled throughout Japan, painting cats in temples, homes, and village halls. Wherever his cats appeared, people felt comforted, protected, and a little less alone. Many years later, Kenji returned to his home village and painted one final picture for his family. It showed a peaceful farmhouse beneath a glowing full moon, surrounded by dozens of watchful cats. From that night onward, the picture reminded everyone that a true gift should never be hidden. And so, the story of the boy who drew cats has been passed down through the generations, reminding us that every person carries a special gift. Even when others do not understand our path, the things we create with love may bring courage, comfort, and light to the world. Thank you for joining tonight's moonlit Japanese tale. May your dreams be peaceful, your imagination shine brightly, and gentle cats watch over you until morning. Good night.